Good evening. It's the Wall Street Weekly Wrap Up, the crypto edition, due to the unwinding of crypto. And I thought I'd make a special um, recording of it because the Wall Street Weekly Wrap Up is about stocks, and this is about crypto. So let's go through because all I have been getting the last 5, 7 days is what the heck is happening with crypto. And so, we did it because, what I've noticed is that people that are under 40, third half of their investment in the portfolio is crypto. Ours is 2.5%. So the damage on us is minimal. And we bought low. If you've been following us, we bought a lot lower. So let's start with the macro catalyst. President Trump, mad at President Xi, announced a 100% tariff on Chinese imports on October 10th, 2025. The risk off sentiment, everybody has to go inside what they're going to do. And of course, what do people do? We have two different crowds in a lot of times when we invest. Those that sense a panic and are going to lock in the profits, and those that are heavily leveraged who have to now sell. Remember, crypto is really unregulated for these free falls and everything else. That makes it interesting. A true free market that can also possibly be manipulated if certain entities want to dump a lot of Bitcoin on the market, which I forgot who it was today. I think JP Morgan said some of these original gangster Bitcoin accounts were starting to sell. First time in years selling the counts. Okay, so what happens? The human nature, it drives the market fluctuation. And what we had is what I don't want to say like a flash crash, but we liquidated about $19 billion of crypto, wiped out. Here we hit the record $126,000 per Bitcoin, and then boom, we're down a lot for all the cryptos. And over 1,600,000. Remember, this is the worldwide. Remember, crypto is worldwide trading. You got people all over. Now, China doesn't allow you to have cryptocurrency, but Singapore and Taiwan and everybody else is trading it. So Tom Lee, who kind of talked about it but didn't get into specifics, talked about the stablecoin on a specific unknown exchange dropped. What it was is ehtena, synthetic dollar. You can see from this chart. Now, a lot of these charts I'm just getting from the internet, so I give props to who did it. A lot of these charts don't have the author, so I don't know who did it, and I apologize if I don't mean, if you had your signature on it, I would give you credit, but I don't even have signatures on these. And essentially, the dollar stablecoin, it should be $1 all the time. And I've had Tether since Tether came out, and then, and it's always been exactly the same amount every day. It doesn't drop, it doesn't go down, and that's the most used. I like Circle, and we'll talk about that in the weekly wrap up. But all of a sudden, this on the exchange, it's dropping quite a bit, and it should be always $1, and you can see the drop. And of course, Binance, who is the exchange, started seeing a lot of problems with the ehtena. I'm going to call it ehtena because I can never say that right. But the era, instead of the liquid spot market, because they all have to be market makers from Binance to Coinbase to Robinhood, if they carry that stable coin, instead of pulling the pricing and says something's going on, it just got the free fall. And so that's what I talk about, 65 cents over here. And other ones, Curve, nothing changed. Nothing changed on Bybit, but Binance had an issue. Some people call it a bug or an error. Not like Binance is going to give me an interview and tell me, oh yeah, this is how it exactly happened. But when you look at other exchanges, it wasn't an issue. Now the trading started seeing cascading, and all of a sudden started doing what they call automated liquidation. You got the big flash crash, record liquidations, and now we're going to get a lot of people dropping the price. Again, there's no rules for some of these exchanges of how much you can borrow. For, let's say, if it was crazy, you got 100 to 1 leverage. That means I put in $1,260, and you're going to let me borrow 10 times that, or 1 Bitcoin. I dropped from 126 to 120. I just lost 6,000, or my $1,260 stake is wiped out. Maybe I hedged it or put up my portfolio of stocks as collateral to borrow this. Remember, people were making funny that, funds that were insane by leveraging and doing well, because crypto was going up, economy was going up. It kind of tracks the S&P and it kind of tracks the NASDAQ. I just think, it's got a life of its own. That's what I always tell people. I don't think you can chart it. And everything else. So this is a problem. We get in there, and now we're having everything start to crash. As things get liquidated, you might have not just had 1,260 of Bitcoin. You might have had some Solana, Ethereum, and because you lost 6,000, they're going to sell everything to try to get that money back. And that means your other positions are forced selling, which is dumping, cascading on and on. So the liquidation, every exchange has so much reserves, and for some of these, it depleted the assurance fund, or what they had for, areas, forcibly closing many of the crypto accounts, even some that were profitable, and they just wiped out. And like I said, my crypto life is over. I remember seeing this. And this is it, because it went down. Everything kind of went down. It wasn't just like this chart was unique for Bitcoin. It was everything. Doge, Cardano, Solana, and everything else. And of course, again, 1.6 million, 2 million traders lost everything. Some people shorted it and made some money, but not too much. When you lose billions of dollars and you made 88 million, that's like 1%. So because these market makers like Binance and Bystamp and Coinbase and crypto.com and so on, they lost a lot of money. Remember, when everybody's selling, you still got to buy it if you're a market maker. Now, you can stop being a market maker and say, whatever you got, you're just going to have to transfer to somewhere else. But it's just a problem. Some of them had to reduce the trading. You could put stops in there. We're not trading Bitcoin. Everything else could be in, but they've been a problem. And the real problem with the crypto, with this kind of a crash, 126 to 80,000, let's say, we have now traders that don't want to come back to crypto. They got beaten up so bad, they got wiped out. They don't want to restart. And this is it. So if you were leveraged, painful. If you weren't leveraged, you watched 40% of your money disappear in less than a month. That's a big hit. 40% in a month. And you don't think anything worse. The averages, S&P 500, NASDAQ, nothing like that. Nothing like that. So when we compare like the Bitcoin versus the S&P 500, and some people use the NASDAQ, but was able to get this one from CoinDesk, FactShed, look and see the drop. It kind of was kind of going up the similar, and then all of a sudden it just fallen off the table, and boom, right here around that area. And it's again, the market makers have to sell. They can see the orders ahead, and if it's selling for $80,000, they might be offering a buy at 75 and a sell at 80. They can widen the spreads so they can try to catch up and hopefully buy some at 75 and hope for a little rebound so they can take some of their money. But this has been a problem because of the relentless selling. So a lot of people talk, Tom Lee, again, I watch him because he's got a good handle on it. He didn't want to talk much about it. But it's in a washout period. If we go back, around about 2022, we had the same thing. I forgot what it got down to. I was going to say it got up to like 60,000, crashed down to 16, 17, because we bought a lot of Bitcoin. And when it got to 27 in a short period, we cashed out. And people are like, why would you cash it all out? Well, because it went up 50% in a few weeks. I'm taking the money. I'm taking the money and running. They said, well, if you would have just sold half. There was no logic to it. There was no logic. There was no explanation. It just was running up. I'm going to grab the money and go. Just like AMC and other meme stocks. That's what I was looking at Bitcoin like. So eventually, he thinks the bottom's going to be near at 77.25. Now remember, he's watched by millions of people. So he's given some hope and stabilization on Bitcoin for maybe there's a bottom for this. Maybe it's 2,500 for the Ethereum and stuff. 6 weeks, he said, well, if we go to 8 weeks, we got 2 more weeks of pain. 2 more weeks. I can't hold on, Tom. I need a life preserver. I got to get out. Because this is what people start looking at. I can't lose everything. This might be my retirement. Oh, could you imagine that being your retirement? So a lot of people, one of the things that Tom brought up that I never thought of is, if you have, let's say, $1 billion of Bitcoin, which is possible, people were shorting MicroStrategy, which buys Bitcoin, as a hedge against a big drop. That's where people said, oh, a lot of people made money because they were short MicroStrategy. You remember, there's a market maker for puts and calls on the exchange for MicroStrategy. And of course, MicroStrategy is going to take the beating. Now, this is October area, and you look at all these red days. I mean, this thing has gone down from 350 to 170 in half. And I watched Michael Saylor like 2 days ago. He looked like he was dragged through a ringer. If you ever watched The Big Short, Bear Stearns, during your time you've been talking, has fallen 1/3. Would you buy some more? Yeah, I would buy some more. Boom! And that's, the Steve Eisman talking. That there it is. There's the collapse. And this is what people are looking at. You got to remember, who's going to come and buy Bitcoin? The retail investor, when they got wiped out for a lot of them? Or the average person who's already down 40%, they're going to put more in it? Woo! This is why it could get ugly. This is why it could get ugly. In a way, like I said, what's the data? Stuff like Doge, and I'm going to pick on Doge because Doge, when Elon loved it, it was up to 70 cents. I remember buying it at 5, and I didn't hold till 70. I got out early. When you think triple Doge, let's get out. It was cute. Elon was going to let you use Dogecoin for Tesla, which just went real fast. I don't know if anybody sold their Dogecoin because we really don't know how much there is out there. We don't know who the wallet owners are. It was in there. Doge is at now 14 cents, well above the 5 cents that I got in. And people said, well, what's it worth? The market cap of Doge is 21 billion. I could make a case it's going to be 12,000. There's no value in Doge. Nobody uses it in real life. It's just a cute coin. It's a meme coin. And you can start looking at what people do. I talked about this in the Wall Street Weekly Wrap-Up. Solana, number 1. And then you go into Binance and then Near. Those are the top 3 used coins. Why would you buy something that's not even used? There might be some trades across the area, but not much. And then we'll talk about stablecoin in the weekly wrap-up because we had the Circle earnings and stuff. But our crypto, just to kind of be transparent, it's about 2%, 0.5% of our portfolio. And it's just because we're looking at who's going to win. I'm now starting to think I know who's going to win. That means who's going to use it? Well, we start with number 1. Tudor Jones, famous investor, 5% of his portfolio is crypto. And he did well. When he was at 60,000, he did well. Did he sell? I don't know. Some people start to say, what point do you sit there and lock in profits? This is where anybody's going in. You don't know why it's collapsed. You got Tom's going to say it's going to be 220. Will it go down lower? Okay. We don't know. We don't know. Here's at 80. It closed at $85,000. Remember, we got the weekend to keep on losing. So, I don't believe you can chart it, but that's, other people. So, chainlink, the processing is used quite a bit. And of course, I call these the old G's, the original crypto. Bitcoin, Ethereum, not too much. The other ones, XRP is used quite a bit. Polkadot, I like the software. Near's number 3. Polygons, again, is used quite a bit. And Binance, number 2 in there. So I keep that, and eventually you're going to see probably Solana, Chainlink, and Ethereum quite a bit, because that's going to be in there. And maybe we get higher than this. The question is, do you keep Bitcoin? Sure. We got a small, remember, this is all 2.5%. So if I just, and I haven't broke it out by, numbers, but let's say Solana, chainlink, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP are probably the highest, and then there's some of these other ones down here. I mean, those are probably equal weight, but you know, I've been slowly getting rid of Ethereum and Bitcoin, and it's just not much, but I'm keeping it. People says, "What do you think Bitcoin's?" I says, "I can see Bitcoin going to 12,000. I mean, I could easily make a case for it. Nobody's really using it. Nobody's going to transact it. You know, it's too slow. Same with Ethereum. Maybe it goes. Maybe it goes. I mean, we just keep it because it's got a history and it's not a big percentage of our portfolio, and we're up on it, unless it completely goes. Like if our average, Sailor's average is like 83,000. I thought I heard today. You know, so he's at his buy price for his lifetime of portfolio. Because I sold everything at 27,000, our average is 60,000. But you know, we come in there, it hits below 60, maybe we'll just dump the whole Ethereum and Bitcoin and just take 2%, 5% loss. You know, I mean, yeah, it can come back, but you know, I also can make a case it's going to be an unwinding, and you got to remember, people locked in profits, they may not come back. People who've been hurt 40% down may not add any more. So who's buying? Everybody's selling. Who's buying? Okay. And then that's it. So I just want to talk about it. I didn't figure I was going to wrap up 16 minutes with it in the Wall Street Weekly Wrap. I just made a special show. Again, you know, like I said, don't leverage. Don't go on margin, because that's a recipe for disaster. I learned that, you know, over 25 years ago. I mean, you know, like you get a margin call, like what? You got to sell stock. You owe us a few $1,000s. Then you got to pick. And of course, you know, it's usually on a day that's already collapsing, so you definitely are getting hammered, you know. And that's why I can ride through it, because I'm not margined. None of our group is margined, but this is how it happens. 1 million, 2 million people margin wiped out. All right, see you tomorrow for the Wall Street Weekly Wrap-Up.